Now I'd like to take a moment here to discuss the dimensions of 80/20 edge a little bit more in depth. First of all, we can see that we have three different types of dimension. We have the actual length, we have the center line length, and then we have the outside dimension. The default measurement for 80/20 edge is actual length. Actual length is the cut length of the T-slotted profile. That is the measurement your extrusion will be cut to in your bill of materials. The actual length of the configuration is represented by the purple dimensions. The center line length is the distance between center lines of the T-slotted profiles. This is displayed in the grid space as red 3D lines on the grid. The center line length of the configuration is represented by the black dimension. The outside dimension is the total overall length, width, and height, including floor-to-frame options of the configuration. The length of the configuration is represented by the red dimension. The width of the configuration is represented by the blue dimensions, and the height of the configuration is represented by the green dimensions. Now that we understand the theory behind what each measurement is, we'd like to go ahead now and dive a little bit deeper into how we come to have these measurements and why they are important to keep in mind when you're designing an 80/20 edge. Now, the actual length of your extrusion and outside dimensions are based upon the center lines that you set for your project, the size of the series that you are using, whether you're using 10 series or 15 series, and as well how you configure your corners. All these three things can in effect change the actual length of each bar. For instance, here we have an example using 10 series. I've gone ahead and drawn 4 extrusions at 12 inches long. Now, even though the center line is only 12 inches long, we have to account for the extrusion that goes beyond the 12 inches that is in addition to the center line. You see, each one of these center lines does not represent a full extrusion. If we hit render, we see now that our rendering actually is wider than our center line. So we have extrusion that needs to be accounted for. So in fact, our outside dimension, if we click here, we see that our outside dimension is in fact 13 inches wide and not 12 inches as our center line dictates at this point. So the thing I want to cover here right now is just to show you how configuring your corners can affect your actual length. Now, your center line length and your outside dimension will both remain the same no matter how you configure your corners. But the actual length, see here, if we go ahead and select property and put our E2 on top of our E1 bar, meaning that this bar will be on the inside of this bar. We'll go ahead and configure that. Now you see already that our actual length has adjusted to accommodate the additional ½ inch on the inside of our extrusion. If we hit render, we see that this has now jumped over. The outside dimension has stayed the same, but we have added onto this bar and subtracted from this bar in order to get 11.5 and our 12.5, which creates still a 13-inch wide project. We'll go ahead and continue configuring corners, and we'll click E1. We'll put this bar inside of this one. Click OK, and we'll see it adjusts again. We now have an 11-inch bar on the inside because we now have to accommodate for the ½ inch of extrusion on the inside of this center line. So that's just a small example. And I just want to throw this out there that the 15 series is 1.5 inches wide. So you'll have 3/4 of an inch on the inside of your extrusion on 15 series and as well on the outside. Another thing I'd like to point out in the dimensions dialog box is that we can actually constrain our outside dimensions to fit a specific measurement. All we have to do is enter the value or measurement we would like our project to be designed to, hit update. You can see that they have been changed to fit within our specified dimensions. Now if we take a look at our actual lengths, we'll see that those have changed to reflect the different outside dimensions. The last thing I'd like to touch on in this section is just to remind you that if you've added a floor-to-frame accessory such as a caster or a glide, that too will be included in your overall height. If we simply look here, we now see that our 3-inch caster has now been accounted for, and now it's no longer 12 inches in height but 16.75, which includes the height of the caster and the hardware it takes to fit onto your project.